Hello there and welcome. My name is Adam and I am the creator of Mind Map Renovations, an innovative framework to help you live with intention, collaborate with your mind, and unlock that great potential. Now, there are a ton of different mindsets, so the examples I'm about to provide are definitely not exhaustive. So keep that in mind as we just kind of give you a sense of what I'm bifurcating as more positive or constructive mindsets and more negative and deconstructive mindsets. So let's start with the positive ones first. One of my favorite mindsets is a beginner's mindset, and you don't have to be a beginner at something per se in order to adopt this mindset to get a different outcome than you might otherwise if you did not adopt a beginner's mindset. So a beginner's mindset is one where you know that the potential for failure is high because you're starting out something new. So you tend to give yourself a little bit more grace, a little bit more time, a little bit more patience in order to get through a challenging task. Beginner's mindset also does not make any assumptions about what's happening or what is going to happen. They are very open-minded. They ask a lot of questions. They don't assume that they know the background. And that can be extremely beneficial as a general mindset because, frankly, we just don't know what's going on in people's heads and the background, the context, all of the things that surround a situation. So having that beginner's mindset of like, well, I don't know, so let me just ask, can be extremely beneficial. Folks with beginner's mindsets do ask a lot of questions, and they also have a plan for if they get overwhelmed. This is important because if there's something new in your life, there's something unexpected, it is very natural for us to become emotional or for us to get overwhelmed in some way. So a big advantage of a beginner's mindset is making sure that you're prepared for that you're mentally prepared for that. Next in this grouping is what's called a growth mindset. This is somebody who is always going to be looking for the next thing. They're going to accomplish something and they're not going to rest for too long. They're always going to be wondering, what's next? What can I do? What can I learn? A growth mindset also factors in the willingness and even the eagerness for feedback and constructive criticism. There's somebody who knows that they can't get further unless they understand more of a 360 view of where they're at, who they are, what they're meant to do. There's a lot of inner questions that happen with a growth mindset, a lot of questioning of yourself. There's actually a Greek maxim that I think really applies to folks with growth mindsets, and it is essentially, loosely translated, surety brings ruin, meaning that if you are so sure, you don't question and you don't doubt, then eventually that will catch up with you. Eventually you will guess wrong, you will be wrong, and because you didn't take precautions to account for that, you weren't prepared for a failure situation, eventually ruin will come down on you. It seems a little extreme, but it certainly can be the case, and we want to be very mindful of that. And folks with growth mindsets are very mindful of that, and they're always asking questions to themselves. They're always wondering, what's next? How can I grow? How can I get better? It's a great mindset to have in any situation, but especially ones where you're looking to advance and you're looking to branch out. The next example of a positive mindset is the mentor mindset. And the mentor mindset is patient and understanding. They are generous with their time. They understand that they have something of value to provide, and they see it as enjoyable and as an opportunity and as kind of a blessing to be able to share their knowledge and wisdom. A mentor mindset is somebody who's going to really focus on personalized communication. They're going to be really mindful of the people that they're working with, their needs, and understand that it's not about them. It's about this other person in which you are passing on knowledge, wisdom, know-how, mindset even potentially. So a mentor mindset is a great way to really reset a little bit and focus on what your contributions are to other folks. So other kind of high-level examples of positive mindsets are being positive. So an optimistic mindset where you don't let anything keep you down. You're always going to be cheerful. You're always going to find that silver lining. And that is your commitment. Those are the rules that you follow, which is come hell or high water, you're going to make sure that you find a way to stay afloat. Another one might be a problem-solving mindset where there's not a problem that you found that you haven't been able to solve. It's a very resilient mindset where instead of feeling overwhelmed when you're confronted with adversity, you feel energized. You've made that decision in your life that every problem is an opportunity, and every opportunity is a way for you to learn. A little bit of growth mindset mixed in with a problem solver mindset potentially. So you're starting to see how a lot of these qualities can overlap with the beginner mindset and the mentor mindset. You're seeing a commonality of patience and understanding. Those are two really great rules to make for yourself no matter what. And again, you can change what you're doing based on the situation that you're in. So if you're going to be going on a grueling 20-mile hike, your mindset might be that problem solver mindset where you're going to be resilient and you're going to move forward and you're going to meet every challenge head on without getting overwhelmed. But if you're going to be in a lecture hall and learning a new thing, then you're going to adopt your beginner's mindset where you'll just absorb things without judgment. You will make sure that you're not making assumptions. You will ask questions if you find yourself in a space where you might want to make an assumption or you simply don't know all of the context that is being spoken of. You'll be very mindful of that. So all of those are really great examples, and I'm going to finish with this last one, which has a counterpart on the negative or deconstructive mindsets. And this one's called a time mindset, meaning that one of the things that you tend to prioritize in your life and the decisions that you make is related to time. So I think that a great way to look at this is if you're an adult and you have living parents, and maybe you live in a different state than your parents and you only really see them on the holidays. So let's say Thanksgiving and Christmas. And you might think, my parents are in their 60s and I will see them plenty of times. I've got years and years before they are no longer with me. However, is that really true? Do you really have years? In reality, if you only see them twice a year, say you've got 20 years left, that's only 40 visits. That's 40 times. That's not 20 years worth. That's not a lot when it comes to that. So when you shift your mindset to think about time as the priority rather than, for example, what we'll talk about in the negative one, which is money, productivity. If your mindset is focused around how do I gain wealth, how do I become secure, security is, of course, very important to our health and happiness. However, too much of a good thing can cause us to deprioritize things that in retrospect seem far more important, such as social interactions, such as bonding with your loved ones, growing stronger with your family, creating new connections, making new relationships. In fact, this has been studied. When folks are prompted to have more of a time mindset, they are observed to spend more of their time focusing on social interactions versus productivity or money-seeking activities. So really interesting, really impactful when you think about how much control that you have over this part of your life, your mindset part of your life, and how dynamic it can be. You can really think about this. You can really think it through in terms of how you want to live your life and create those rules for yourself and then follow those rules. That creates the neural network, the neural pathways that the more you use them, the easier it gets, and that will become your default mindset. So now that we've talked about the positive mindsets, let's talk about the negative mindsets so we know what to avoid. The first one is something called a fixed mindset, which in a lot of ways is the direct opposite of a growth mindset. This is a kind of mindset where folks just don't want anything to change, no matter what. They're very resistant to anything evolving or changing or getting out of their comfort zone. These are folks who are very defensive in the face of feedback or perceived criticism. These are folks who just believe that there's a limited number of ways to do things. So they are naturally limiting themselves in a lot of ways in life. So if any of that sounds familiar, if any of that feels familiar to you, take a second to think about whether or not you want to continue with that particular mindset. So another example is a pessimistic mindset, where you feel like things are always going to be bad or bad things are always going to happen. You find yourself unwilling to adapt and ultimately are just resigned to your fate. And so you take no measures to make changes or to find a different way or to problem solve. That pessimistic mindset is probably something that you grew up around. And the most insidious part of mindsets that are negative like this is they tend to be self-fulfilling prophecies. So when you live your life in this place of things won't ever get better, that permeates every part of your behavior, of the words that you use, the interactions that you have with folks. So those people might find themselves increasingly isolated, or they might find that their group of friends are all negative, that the only thing that they can do is complain or gripe, and it might feel okay in the moment, but nothing ever gets better and you just can't figure out why. Mindset can be a big factor in those stuck feelings, which is again why we tend to talk about mindsets when we talk about growing ourselves and making our lives better. So another negative mindset to look out for is the entitled mindset. These are folks who have a really exaggerated sense of self, a lot of self-importance, a lot of expectations of what other people should be doing for them, and then maybe a lot of resentment when that doesn't materialize, because it probably wasn't an entirely rational belief in the first place. Entitled people might also just be in a rush all the time. They might prioritize their time, but it's not necessarily in the most advantageous way. It's so they can get what they want or what they perceive that they want in that moment, and so they're not really taking a lot of time to be present. And that can have some negative impacts on your overall life if that's your mindset of just go, 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 rush, rush, rush. Your life will flash by you in an instant. Entitled folks might also look down on others. So if you look around and you find yourself making judgments, having negative thoughts about complete strangers that you see walking around in front of you when you're out in public, you might have an entitled mindset where you find yourself getting some sort of self-soothing or gratification from looking down on folks, even though it's a very arbitrary and probably inaccurate thing to do. And finally, an entitled mindset will also prevent people from taking accountability for their own words and actions and how they behave in general. So because they can't really fathom a scenario in which they are wrong, then they certainly cannot fathom taking accountability for what it is that they're doing. So if you find yourself having a sense of importance, yet you find that you are often alone, that you don't really have a lot of close friends, your mindset is probably contributing to that particular problem in your life, which can be solved by making new rules for yourself, behaving differently, adjusting accordingly, and being able to find those connections. So a couple more high-level negative mindsets to look out for are selfish mindsets. So when you're only thinking about you and what you can get out of things, these are mindsets that manifest in a very transactional way. So these are the people that only call you when they need something from you. These are the folks who don't understand reciprocation. They are more taking and less giving. And that mindset might have been born out of an imbalanced relationship in the past where maybe they were taken advantage of. And so they have vowed to never let that happen again, but it's kind of gone too far. So some things to think about if you find yourself in that place where your mindset tends to be more self-centered. That again is going to maybe result in isolation, unhappiness, a lack of fulfillment. If you're feeling any of those feelings, again, examine the mindsets that you're living your everyday life by, and if they don't match with your goals, what you want from life, start reprogramming. Also, there's a cheater's mindset. So if you always want to get one up on somebody, or if you don't want to follow the rules, maybe you think rules are stupid, and some of them are, quite frankly, but it's just your mindset. It's your habit to just always look for a way around the rules. Well, we live in a society that's rules-based by and large, and that maybe is not going to make it difficult for you to make friends, for you to have a reputation of integrity, to be trustworthy or to be trusted. And if you find yourself in those situations where people are skeptical of you or wary around you, then it may be your mindset, the way that you're behaving because of these rules you've created for yourself. It's these mental habits. That is something that you have control over and that you can change. And finally, in the negative mindset, the counterpart to a time-based mindset, which we talked about in the positive mindset category, we also have a money mindset. And I diametrically oppose these because in our society today, we tend to have this opposition between time and money. In order to make money, we have to spend time, and we tend to think that more time we spend making money means more money. And when you think about why we're making all that money, it's probably so that we can have a home for our family that we love and spend time with our friends and go on vacations. But we tend to prioritize the making the money more than we prioritize the spending the time that we're making the money to facilitate. So we have to start asking ourselves some questions, when it comes to the balance here. Will that return on investment be enough on the money mindset in order to fulfill a time mindset? Will the outcomes change if I spend half an hour more with somebody, with a loved one in my life? That will make all of the difference, and that half an hour will add up to days and weeks and months and maybe even years over a lifetime, versus cutting out that time and spending it doing something that won't be memorable, that won't benefit you, that will only return a small amount, if any, in terms of extra income. And when we make this shift, when we really think about the two, again, studies have shown that we will always go towards time and change our behavior when we're more cognizant of it. And so that is the beauty of you watching this video right now. You are now cognizant of it. You can think a little bit more intentionally about the mindsets that you're using in any given situation, and you now have the power and the control to make intentional decisions. So to circle back to what we talked about when it comes to skepticism of mindset and the power of mindsets, I completely understand when you're in a bad situation, when there's a lot of things out of your control, and even worse, when there's a lot of things working against you. Mindset is not going to be the silver bullet that fixes all of that. However, this goes back to that reframing. For me, if the outcome will not change, no matter what I do, I would rather smile than cry, right? So if the outcomes are going to stay the same, I have the control over how I'm going to view that, how I'm going to respond, the resources that I'm going to try to pull in to help me work through that situation. All of those revolve around mindset. For example, think about how much your mindset is playing into your current situation. So we talked earlier about isolation and the reasons why people tend to become isolated if they have entitlement mindset, a pessimistic mindset, a fixed mindset. Well, one of the best things that you can do for yourself in order to feel and be supported is to have a community, to have people around you that will support you, that you can communicate well with. And mindset goes a long way to being able to build those bonds. So if you're in a tough situation, if you're in a situation that things are working against you, nobody knows more about that situation than you do. So is there a way that you can be part of the solution? Is there a way that you can build a coalition for people that are also in those adverse conditions? So it's entirely within your power to use that insider knowledge to maybe build coalitions, to build support networks, to find a way out, to be a problem solver. I know it can seem like a lot to put on your shoulders, but when you do take ownership of the things that you can control, when you build that autonomy, that is the number one defense against burnout, against feelings of anxiety or depression. It is at least a good place to start, and mindset is something that you can absolutely reprogram, rewire, make that commitment to yourself, make those changes, and you will be amazed with what you can do. Remember, mindsets are a choice, and now that you have one, I look forward to seeing what mindsets you choose for yourself and the impacts that it has on your life. Until I see you again, I invite you to always be nice to yourself.